Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, and this is a podcast dedicated to helping you have the premier accounting firm in your area, getting paid what you're worth, offering quality accounting services to those clients that you're servicing. In that process, we have each and every week an episode here to actually help you work on your business. And it's in these conversations that we speak to the experts to find out ways in which you can offer more services, market, sell with confidence, price your services appropriately, onboard the clients effectively, and obviously retain and have good client relations with them. It's in this process that we hope to give you the information you're needing to actually focus on your business and work on it with confidence. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today. It is Chris Ducker. Chris happens to be a serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling books Virtual Freedom and more recently Rise of the Youpreneur. Based in Cambridge, England, Chris owns and operates several businesses, including the VA recruiting hub, virtualstafffinder.com, and with that, he has a personal brand education company, Youpreneur. He employs over 350 full-time employees around the world and is regarded as one of the top experts in the world on the subjects of virtual staffing and scaling an expert business. Chris has been a trusted international business coach, keynote speaker, podcaster since 2010, and currently spends most of his time mentoring successful entrepreneurs as well as investing in advertising startup companies. He's also published new training weekly at chrisducker.com and can be followed on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Great to have you here on the show. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So obviously, one of the things that really stems into the accounting world is as we're struggling to find employees, fewer people or not enough people are entering the profession in the schooling. Not many people are sticking around. And so there's arguably a staffing shortage going on. And so virtual offshore type employment is something that comes up regularly in conversations. So I'm kind of excited to get your insights on this. So let me begin by, first of all, just asking what got you into the space of virtual work?
Well, I mean, I've been involved in the outsourcing industry since about 2004. So, way before the 4-hour work week and everybody knew what a VA was, I was already working with them, quite frankly. So I was actually based over in the Philippines since the year 2000, very late in the year 2000. I moved over there for work, set up my own firm a few years later, where we did a lot of hiring, training, managing of remote sales teams and marketing teams for certain corporations over there. That morphed into a full-blown BPO or a business process outsourcing firm. In other words, a call center facility, where we would work with companies from all around the world. And so virtual work, outsourced employees, remote employees, VAs, it's been in my blood now for almost 20 years. And so 2010, we opened the doors to virtualstafffinder.com, which is our recruitment company for people who want to find virtual assistants over in the Philippines. Since then, we've helped over 8,000 people to do exactly that and continue to go from strength to strength. So it very much is rolling around inside my veins, put it that way.
I love it. So one of the things I'd like to start with then is what type of work usually is conducive to outsourcing like this, where you get a virtual assistant or hire some other person to do something remotely versus something that typically needs to be done in-house and you're better off not outsourcing that responsibility. Do you have a helpful way of distinguishing what those roles might be?
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is things have changed a lot over the last 6, 7, 8 years or so, even more so over the last few years with the pandemic. There's not much that can't be done remotely nowadays. There's not much. There's not many roles now that cannot be handled, managed, grown, fostered from an arm's length, whether it be, on the other side of town at another office or completely on the other side of the world. And in fact, actually, there's some pros and cons to both, obviously, but ultimately, there's no reason why anybody needs to come into, your office anymore. It can all be remotely kind of built and managed on a daily basis now.
So give me what you think would be a distinction between choosing to outsource a particular task, role, responsibility to another company versus taking the responsibility of identifying a virtual employee and managing them remotely?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think there's a few different ways to get started with delegating from an arm's length or virtually, right? First up, there are sort of tasks. Okay, so these are one-off tasks that you need handled. Let's say, for example, you're an accountant that has a website that has a couple of hundred, articles that you've written on there. They're SEO'd, they're getting you web traffic, you're getting inquiries, people filling out the contact form, et cetera, et cetera. But now you've got the idea of potentially turning those articles into a book, for example. You put your name on the front cover of a book. It's an expert positioning strategy. A lot of people are doing this. So what you could do is you could say, hey, I've got these 50 articles, which are my most visited articles on my website. I want someone to pull them off my website, put them into a document, and start developing them into a book that I can fundamentally self-publish myself to help me generate more leads, grow my business, serve my clients, et cetera, et cetera. And so you get someone to pull those off and to put them into that Word document and to do some sort of a first round of developmental edits on there. And then the task is done at that point, right? At this point, you probably want to hire somebody else to go ahead and handle the task of doing inline edits and paragraph edits and things like that, and ultimately finalizing a manuscript, right? And so what you've done here is you've got two tasks that have been handled by two people who have both been paid when they actually are done and finished with their task. You've got what you wanted out of it, which is fundamentally an almost finished manuscript to turn into a piece of, literary gold, right? And those tasks I've already done with, thank you very much, game over kind of thing, right? The other types of delegation are what I would call project delegation, and then, role-based delegation. So project delegation, the perfect example for this is maybe, your website, right? Like your website's a little out of date. It needs a bit of a facelift. Well, you're not just going to hire one person or even just two people to do that. There's going to be a small team of people if you want to do it right. So you need a graphic designer. You need a web developer to actually code and program the website. You need a copywriter to help you with sales pages, opt-in pages, any kind of pages where you're sort of talking about your products or services. And then maybe, you might want to hire somebody who is more of a conversions specialist, or, somebody who can ultimately help you be found better in Google and all that sort of type of stuff. So that's a project. And once that project's done, everybody gets paid and it's game over. Thank you for playing. The third way of being able to delegate and ultimately work with people remotely is my favorite way. And it's the way that I kind of talk about more than anything else. And that is that by building a team. So you can sort of outsource for tasks and projects, or you can outsource for an actual, team player, somebody who's actually going to come onto your business as a full-time member of staff. And when you do that, the big thing here is to be able to hire for the role and not for the task. So when I say that, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're hiring people very specifically for one particular role. It sounds really obvious, Roger, but you would be amazed how many people try to kind of flip-flop between one role and another with just one person. And, the analogy is like, you wouldn't hire a plumber to do your electrics in your house, right? You'd have a fire. Yeah. But, you'd be amazed how many people say, well, I need a plumber that can also do electrics as well. And so they try and hire one person to do both jobs. And that's when obviously the house of cards start tumbling down in terms of team building. But yeah, that's basically the three different ways that you can work with people who are remote based.
Yeah, one of the things, using your analogy there, that I've experienced is when working with someone, you hire the plumber, and a month or two or three into the work, you all of a sudden say, "Oh, by the way, do you do electrical as well? And I've got this thing over here. Can you come over and help me with it?" And then too often the person's willing to help and try, but obviously there's sometimes a need for an expert. The thing that I love about this conversation, before I switch gears on us, is the fact that oftentimes in the client mind, the accounting that we're offering as a accounting professionals is the same question. They're wondering, do they continue to do this in-house, hire someone, manage someone that honestly they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to hire, interview, find the right quality person to do the work, and then manage them. And so they consider outsourcing their accounting services to the accounting professional. And likewise, they're having someone that's an expert do the work that needs to be done. And the thing that I think is fascinating is the fact that whether they be across town or overseas, they're in a position where as an expert, they need to step in and take care of what's needed by the client. Oftentimes the client not necessarily knowing what has to be done.
Right.
They are, in fact, the experts. So the other thing I would add to your explanation of the different types of things to outsource is I think that there's an excellent process that we can follow to determine when might be the right time to outsource, particularly certain tasks or maybe even a role. And it's that of, first of all, getting to the point where we can at least document the process, the system that we're wanting to be followed. And are we in a place where we've documented it such that we can then duplicate it, take it to someone else, and ultimately delegate it to them? And if we've figured out that process internally, it's a lot easier to teach, instruct, guide someone through what's expected. And at the end, they're able to more clearly deliver what we're asking for because the steps were so clearly defined as to what we're asking them to do. And so oftentimes I think it's a burden that we need to bear as employers to really figure out what we're asking for so that we can set the right expectations. Once it's documented, we can duplicate it, take it to someone else, train them, teach them, and ultimately once they're up and running and trained, we can delegate to them and they can have the responsibilities to complete it. And that makes for, I think, a very healthy relationship. And in the VA interactions that I personally have using some offshore services myself, that's where it's been the most effective. So just to kind of add to the conversation there. Before we leave the topic of outsourcing and so forth, I did want to ask, is there something that you shouldn't outsource?
I mean, I think there's a fine line behind, particularly for personal brands. Let's say you're running an accountancy firm and it's a bit of a solo show. Maybe there's one or two other people helping you out. If you're the face of the business, so to speak, there are certain things that you might do from a marketing standpoint, like, writing a weekly email or, writing blog posts, that sort of type of stuff. People ultimately want to do business with other people that they know, like, and trust, right? And I think one of the easiest ways to be able to build trust while we're growing our business very specifically online is to, incorporate as many touch points as possible. The problem is that quite frankly, the entry barrier to create and publish content online nowadays is about as low as it's been. Pretty much any idiot can do it. And therefore, because of that, it's the exact reason why you should be considering doing this stuff yourself and really putting your own personal, unique stamp on it. Because I'm a big believer of when you build the business of you, as I call it, there's no real competition at all, right? So if, let's say for argument's sake, you're an accountant that, I don't know, collects Pokemon cards as a hobby. Let's just throw something. Okay. We'll throw something random out there, right? Because my son collects Pokemon cards. It just popped into my head. So, you're an accountant. You collect Pokemon cards. You've done it for the last 20 years, and you've got this great, expertise in not only helping people with their books, but also in collecting these, collectible cards. You could talk about the fact that you went to a show to track down one particular card because you knew that particular card was going to be worth 10 times in, 2 years from now or whatever it might be. And then because you're injecting your own personality and that uniqueness of you and the fact that you like Pokemon, you can then bring that back to, much like when you're looking for an accountant, what do? You don't just pick somebody off the internet. You'll go to somebody that has already utilized them and, that accountant has helped them save X amount of money on their taxes or help them set up X amount of whatever it might be. And there's always a story, I believe genuinely, there's always a story from our personal worlds as personal brands that we can bring into business. Always, always, always. I practice the art of bonsai and have done for many years.
Wow.
So I might talk about how I will get a raw piece of material, a juniper plant, for example, and I will prune branches I don't want. I will wire branches up. I will remove foliage at certain times through the year. I will feed like crazy through the growing season, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can push that back to a business lesson of, if you want something to grow, if you want your business to grow into something that's going to bring you joy every time you look into it, then what you need to do is spend the time to make sure that your branches, in other words, your customers, your suppliers, the experience you give your clients, et cetera, your branches are in the right place, that there's a right amount of foliage on that business of yours so that it has nice strong roots underneath in the pot, and so on and so on and so on. There's always a way to feed it back into a business lesson. And so I think by adding in as much of your uniqueness, whether it be bonsai or Pokemon or anything else for that matter, I think that just is it's a great way to be able to stand out from the crowd, in which, let's face it, is a very crowded niche, isn't it?
It is, and you've done an excellent job transitioning to where I wanted to go with you, Pernur, because I was going to ask what kind of content styles someone may want to consider as they're promoting and marketing themselves. And I think you nailed it by saying it's that personal flair that we each can bring to the discussion. It literally is that uniqueness that we're in competition with no one there, because that is who we are.
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter whether you're, creating blog material and putting it on your website, or whether you're putting yourself up on YouTube via video, or you're recording a podcast like this one right here. I'm sure there's been times, Roger, in the past, and there probably will be in the future, where you've injected a certain amount of your personality and what kind of gets you up in the morning and what makes you tick into this show. And that's what people like about you. And that's why people will continue to tune into this show week in, week out, episode after episode, is because, yeah, sure, they like to hear from smart guests, but ultimately they're coming back for Roger because they like you.
We would like to think so. I would hope so. But you're right. I think there is something that I trust is genuine and unique about what I bring to the conversation, my own perspective, and more importantly, my own experience. And it's those things that I'm able to draw upon to add to the conversation. And I'm hoping that the listeners appreciate, enjoy, and find value in what it is that I'm adding to the discussion. So you're right. I think that that's something I need to be conscious of and be clearly open to doing with the conversations, is adding myself to the narrative. So that's very good. What's the best way to generate high quality leads then, and turning them into loyal customers if we're using this unique style that is so proprietary? We're who we are, right?
Well, I don't think there is one way that's better than another, right? I think regardless of whether you're putting yourself out on social media regularly, or you're publishing videos, like I said, or a weekly podcast, or you're writing newsletters to email. So honestly, the content medium itself isn't anywhere near as important as the consistency in which you're showing up. That is the key right there. When we talk about leads, and quite frankly, this is like very, very close to where I am right now, because I've just had, I have an inner circle mastermind, which I call my round table, and it's 25 people at any one time. You've got to be doing a minimum of $100,000 a year to be able to even apply, let alone get accepted, right? And we just had one client of ours just join the group, and he paid, his fee, which is, it's a big fee for the year. It's not a couple of grand or anything. It's a big, big fee that our members drop every month on this. But he paid for an entire year up front because he gets a 1 month discount if he does that. Now, this person, I have never heard from this person before. He's in the music industry, and I've never heard of him before. He's never bought any of my courses online. He's never reached out to me via email or via social media. I've never conversed with him at an event. I've never met him, nothing like that at all. And all of a sudden, he's applied, got through the vetting process, had a call with me, and been invited to go ahead and join the mastermind at the amount of, what we charge on an annual basis, which is not chump change. Now, as part of that application process, I went into our email marketing software and just looked at his email address very quickly to see whether or not he just quite literally walked in off the street, or whether he at least opened a few of our emails. And I was astounded to see that this person had been on our email list since 2017, is a member of about 6 or 7 different sequences inside of our email funnel. And not only that, but he's been getting the emails, he's been opening the emails, and he's been clicking on things inside of the email since 2017. And now he's just gone ahead and dropped the most amount of money that anybody can drop on working with us as his first purchase. That is not by accident. That is because every week I've showed up in his inbox. Every month he's been to a training, or every other month he's turned up to a webinar, or whatever it might be. So what I'm getting at here is it's the consistency over the last 3, 4, 5 years of serving this particular person has now gone ahead and ultimately turned into a very, very hefty investment. And I get the opportunity to work with somebody who, although I haven't worked with before, he has a very good, clear indication of the type of person that I am and what I'm all about. As backup to that statement, we send all of our new mastermind members a welcome hamper from England. He's based over in California, in LA, actually. And we sent him the hamper. And at the exact same time he received that, I received a bottle of Macallan 15, because I mentioned in 2 or 3 emails not so long ago that I'm a big whiskey collector. So more uniqueness that goes into it, more trust over a period of time, consistency leads to, I believe, very seriously, much, much more business over the long haul.
So there's a few things that I've taken from that, and I'd like to highlight these and see if there's anything you'd like to add.
Yeah.
One is the relationship obviously came over years, and so there was a nurturing element to it.
Yes.
And it was very consistent. It was consistent and deliberate. You mentioned that he was in certain funnels, the 6 or so different campaigns that he was participating in. He obviously found certain things of interest. He got into those. He was engaging in those in the sense that he was opening those emails. He was participating in the webinars. And it's through that nurturing process that you were able to position yourself uniquely, your personality. You were able to come through, your whiskey collection being one of those things that he was able to identify. But at the same time, he also was able to see you then as the expert, the person who had what he needed or was missing. And as the expert, he believed that you could actually fill that void, address that need. And in doing so, he ultimately was able to then spend the money with you that he needed to join the mastermind group. So there's definitely a process. You had a deliberate system that you were intentionally delivering. These weren't ad hoc emails. They were campaigns that were, I'm sure, building one upon another. And at the same time, they were each addressing specific needs. You mentioned 6 of them. So there were 6 things that resonated with him that he was able to actually say, this is of interest. And that further nurtured him along this way over the years to help see you as the expert and that unique solution. How's that so far?
That's bang on the money.
I love it. I love it. So obviously you've got then quality leads that you've been generating and nurturing. You've created a loyal customer. So what advice would you give to someone as they were considering ways to scale their business? Here they are, they're doing well. How do you scale the business?
Well, I mean, generally, it's going to come down to 2 things: marketing strategy and team. If you're a solopreneur and you run the business, the practice on your own, maybe you've only got one person there, helping you out. It's going to be very hard for you to scale any business in that regards. If you want to build a business over a period of time, quite frankly, you've got to invest money, you've got to invest energy, and you've got to invest time. And it comes down to everything from running ads to get leads through the door faster than they would do organically. It comes down to hiring the right people for the right roles at the right time. And then obviously it comes down to you actually spending the time to go ahead and execute on those strategies. So, how long's a piece of string really is the right, answer to that question. It really comes down to what position people are in. Can they afford to hire to scale? If they can't, maybe they can afford to, start running paid ads, or maybe they can afford to start their own weekly video show that they post up on YouTube. There's a number of different ways to do it, but ultimately it comes down to those 3 things.
Very good. So I'm hearing a few things. One, the marketing. Obviously, you've got to figure out a way to expand the top of that sales funnel to bring in more leads. And as you can scale that, grow that, you're typically looking at new marketing things that you can supplement other proven marketing strategies. But at the same time, if you've got a proven marketing strategies, what can you do to open that tap, spend more money, generate more and more leads to widen that funnel? But now you've got to process them through there. And you spoke of teams. Teams being, what have you done to document, duplicate, and delegate? You've got to figure out your process, what needs to be done along the way, those steps, and ultimately what can you do to then in the end delegate to someone else. And this is going to bring me maybe full circle back to the previous conversation about outsourcing. But one of the things that I think is very important is determining which of these roles are client facing. Generally speaking, we don't outsource the client facing things. The things that the client is
Correct.
experiencing should be us. We don't want the client to be experiencing a third party. And so we're not going to outsource those things, but anything that's internal that doesn't interact with the client directly, we're going to be able to document those things, delegate those things in the end, and in time grow as you're describing. So I'm liking this conversation. Should a business owner be focused on this yearly, quarterly? What kind of mindset should they do as they're considering how to grow their business?
Daily. Daily, it's interesting. We work with our clients, our coaching clients, ultimately on a rolling 90-minute, or rather a 90-day goal setting kind of setup. So every quarter we'll go ahead and we'll get together for what we call our quarterly intensive. And we do it the first month of each quarter, and then we set all of our goals for the next quarter. Usually it's a very technical term, Roger, you'll like this. I call it the 3 big things. That's the technical term in our goal setting process.
Very technical.
The 3 big things that you're going to work on in the next 90 days. And then we break those 3 big things down into usually 3 or 4 little mini things that you've got to work on in order to be able to go ahead and actually apply and execute and, hit that target, right? So it really comes down to, reverse engineering what that goal is and then working on that for a certain period of time. Sometimes that goal will take 2 weeks, and you'll break that down into 2 weeks of daily activities. It might take 6 weeks, and you do likewise maybe into weekly activities. But bottom line is, if you want to grow your business, you've got to be obsessed by it. I'm not going to go all Gary Vaynerchuk here or anything. That's not my style at all. But what I'm saying is that if growth is a genuine factor for you currently right now in your business, you have to become obsessed with growing. Every activity you do, every single hour of every single day has to equal chipping away at the goals that you set for yourself to grow your business. If you don't obsess over it, I'm not saying that you're not going to grow or scale, but what I am saying is it'll take you a lot longer to get to where you want to go.
I love it. A good mindset is always looking at ways to grow and build the business. So I like that emphasis. So what do you do to avoid burnout?
Well, I personally, several things. So Monday to Thursday are the days that I work. I don't work a Friday. I haven't worked a Friday since 2012. So coming on almost 10 years now of not working Fridays. And Monday to Thursday, I'm usually working from around about 10 in the morning through to around about 4 p.m. each day. I always make sure that I begin my day with moving my body. And no, I'm not a health nut. It's not my jam at all. But I'll either go for a walk, or I'll go on the cross trainer for half an hour, or I'll do some stretching, some yoga for 20 minutes, or whatever it is. I don't like exercise, Roger. I'm the first one to admit that in my household, but I do it every day because I've got 4 children and I love life. And I want to be here for as long as possible, right? It's like taking a supplement every day, which I also do, by the way. So that happens. Secondly, when I get to work, usually around 9:30, 10 o'clock, I will not check email, social, or any project collaboration software, whether it be Slack or Basecamp or Asana or whatever it is anybody's using. I don't check any of that until all of my creative work is done first. So my mornings, Monday to Thursday, are explicitly for creative work only, whether that be writing emails for marketing purposes, not replying to emails, but actually sitting in a word processing type software and writing an email that will either go out to our email subscribers, or maybe I'm adding something to an already performing sequence to kind of make it perform better and convert higher, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's film. Maybe I've got a camera in front of me and I'm filming something for our paying clients or our YouTube channel. Possibly I'm recording podcast messages or episodes for our podcast, Upreneur FM, as well. Or whatever it is, the creative work comes first. Because let's face it, most of us have got the best energy at the beginning of the day compared to the end of the day, right? And so that's what I utilize the mornings for. Then I take a little lunch, and then I'm back to work again, and it's kind of everything from admin to email to social, replying to client messages because my private clients get access to me via a messaging app, and then doing things like this with people just like yourself. And that's basically what I make sure I do day to day to make sure that when the day is finished and over and done with, work is finished. Because here's the thing, I work from my home as well. My home office and studio is in my house, right? So when I leave the desk and I close the door and I'm now a dad, not the boss or the mentor, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. I don't go back into the office. I know some people might think that that's tough to do when you work at home, but I genuinely don't do it. Once the day is over, the day is over, right? And so I think all of those things combined with things like a half decent diet. Yes, I get probably an average of 7 hours sleep each night. You take all those things into consideration. I think one of the reasons why I don't burn out, and I have burnt out once before in 2010, but you've got to learn by the lessons that you pick up along the way. I don't really look at things like, oh, I made a mistake. No, I just had a lesson. That's the way I look at it. And then I just make sure that I'm pretty regimented with my time. I don't let people steal my time from me. Like, time is my most valuable commodity as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And so if something's not on my schedule, it doesn't. I don't allow it to infiltrate my schedule. Likewise, if it's not on my schedule, then it won't get done. So all of the important stuff for me is always on the schedule as well, if that makes sense.
It does. And I appreciate you emphasizing that, because I'm very much a time management what should I say? I'm very passionate about time management. I think that is the thing that we have the least of. And I like the regiment that you shared, because I think we all need to find that routine that we can all fall back to. And if we follow that routine, generally you can create very good habits, and those habits can then produce success. And so I'm very much a proponent of this, and I loved you sharing that. So thank you. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of wrap this up. One of the things I want to do is summarize part of our conversation, then come back to you for a closing thought. As we do this, I do want to just share with the listeners that in the episode description, Chris has been so good as to put some information there that you can take advantage of. He shared there that he publishes quite regularly content and so forth, so I'll be putting information there for you to take advantage of that. And then in addition to this, simply because we were talking about planning, I'm going to list there a book that is called In the Black. It's a book for individuals to work on their business. In the Black, 9 Principles to Make your business profitable. It is essential for every business owner as they're trying to figure out what it is they ought to be working on, in fact, to be the most successful accounting, bookkeeping, tax business. So in essence, go to the episode description, find there these different resources and take advantage of them. Now, as a summary of our conversation, really like that we were able to start with this whole idea of outsourcing virtual assistants. I do believe that a lot of people have that in their minds as to how to determine what and when to outsource, how to maybe identify what roles or tasks can be performed by someone else. And I thought those insights that Chris shared earlier were very helpful in that determination. At the same time, I like the fact that we were able to identify that there are things that we need to do ourselves and need to kind of keep in-house. That's what's very important and unique to us. And that kind of transitioned us into a conversation about marketing. And I really thought that this idea that we are unique and that is what we should be bringing to the table valuable. That's what I think allows people to resonate with us individually, our hobbies, our interests, and all of a sudden that unique character that comes through sometimes is the very thing that draws individuals to us and helps us generate the clients that we're looking for. Had a good conversation about customer loyalty and finding ideal clients. Chris was good to share a little bit of the campaigns and nurturing that he does in order to build those relationships so he can get the high-paying clients that he does. And I think we can relate to that. It's something that we can each identify with in our own strategies as to what it is that we're doing as part of our marketing and sales programs to ensure that we're bringing in those ideal clients, bringing them in to us where they are wanting to work with us because of who we are and what it is we offer. So I thought that was a very healthy part of the conversation. And then with regards to burnout, I'm glad that we were able to end the conversation talking about time management routines, coming up with something that is effective, holding sacred the time that we have, and basically using that effectively. Very, very good discussion there. So, Chris, what final thoughts would you like to share with everyone?
Well, I think, the most important thing here is that uniqueness message. I think, particularly for anybody that is an accounting pro and they are wanting to truly stand out and build a business that is a leader in their area, their town, their country, whatever the case may be, understand that, fact of the matter is a whole bunch of accountants out there that people could work with. The question you've got to ask yourself is, what can you do to stand out, to be different, so that they want to work with you instead of somebody else? Where's that uniqueness factor? And I think the more time you spend thinking about that and what that means for you and for the growth of your business and the people that you serve, it's going to be a better investment for you. So really lean into that uniqueness and, that business of you mentality.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thank you. So for everyone listening, I do want to invite you to GrowCon. Make sure that you find out when and where. It's every May. We do this as an event for accounting professionals to come hear from the experts, visit with your peers, and see what it is you can be doing to work on your business. We invite you to come and join us for GrowCon. And with that in mind, also want to suggest if you have any questions, things that you'd like to learn more about what you can be doing to work on your business, feel free to reach out to us. You can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. And always remember, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care. Have a great day and be safe out there, everyone.